Okay, so so we are ready to start now. It's perfect time. So please, Corinne, would you like to give a brief introduction of yourself?
Sure, absolutely. So as Nicole just said, I'm Corinne, and I have been in and around this industry for a very long time. So just to give you some background as to what sort of got me started and what sort of led me to literally being here with you today. So my relationship with international education started a really long time ago. I was an exchange student to Japan. And that was sort of a, it's cliche to say, but it was really a life-changing experience. And that was really what started my lifelong love affair with international education. So then if we skip forward a little bit, my first job straight out of university was as a Japanese agent, which was actually really funny because I was not what schools expected when they met their Japanese agent. From there, I held various marketing and student-facing roles at language schools in New Zealand, which is where I'm from. And I also worked in the international department of public schools as well. Finally, many years later, I ended up in Germany, which is where I'm sitting right now, where I worked as marketing director for ISEF for almost 8 years. After having my daughter, I decided it was time to start my own business, a little bit less travel, more flexibility. So I started my own business, Kaya Marketing. And that is a marketing consultancy that's focused very specifically on education marketing. Now we tackle a whole bunch of different things, but these days, most of what we do is digital marketing. So things like social media, content creation, a little dabble of SEO, a bunch of different things that are largely based online. But because I like a challenge, in 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, I teamed up with Emma Fell, who's a fellow education marketing specialist, and we founded the Education Marketing Collective, which is a training platform for schools, agents, anyone involved in our industry that provides digital marketing training in its very many forms. So to wrap all of that up, in the past almost 4 years, I've worked with a really large number of schools, agents, education service providers, and helped them with various aspects of their marketing, which is basically what has brought us here today and allows me to talk to you about marketing strategy.
That's great. Thank you so much, Corinne, for this introduction. So Giuseppe, now it's your turn, if you'd like to.
Yes. Okay, hello everyone. First of all, thank you so much, Corinne, for coming today and joining our Adobe AI webinar. And thank you so much, Nicole, for hosting us today. My name is Giuseppe Tomasello. I'm from Italy, but I've been actually living in many countries around the world. I spent 7 years in China. I'm just back in Europe after 7 years, actually 1 month ago. And right now I'm in Belgium, close to Brussels, in one of our clients in our language school. So that is one of our customers. And so I started Adobe AI more or less 5 years ago, and with the actually selfish need of building a better tool that can allow me to learn Chinese. And because I was living in China, I was struggling with the language, and I've been a really passionate language learner. I've been learning different languages across my journeys around the world. But when I started learning Chinese, it was really difficult. And then so I decided to build a tool, being like a software engineer. I built this simple tool to learn Chinese. And then actually this tool started to evolve over time. And now actually Go AI, which is a solution for language institutions and for language teachers that use artificial intelligence in order to help those teachers to teach better, to scale their presence. What we say is we build the technology that allow teachers to scale and to improve what is the human interaction at the core of language learning. So we still want to keep the human interaction because we believe that that's actually where language learning really happens, is when you want to learn to communicate, but we know that technology can actually help to enhance the relationship and extend the power of teachers. That's what we do right now, and we empower also language institutions. And I really want to say about my story, why I started, because we always put the student at the center of our experience. We really want to build tools that allow students to learn faster and a better way. And that's, I think, is also the core of marketing. Is always put your final customer at the center of your service, or what you're serving. So I think today I'm really happy to have a Corinne that is going to outline marketing strategies, and I'm sure customer-centric is one of those principles. And then at the end, after Corinne's presentation, we're going to show an example of how you can use Adobe AI to build a real funnel in order to acquire customers online and manage to grow your business online. So yeah, I'm really happy also to interact with you. This is a live webinar. We love to do on Zoom because we love also like interactions with the audience. So at the end, we will have a space to interact and have a discussions and answering to questions. So that said, let's start.
Exactly. Corinne, please,
right.
the floor is all yours.
Excellent. So first I need to share my screen. So, Nicole, I think you need to give me the ability to share my screen, if you wouldn't mind.
Now you got it.
And now I've got it. Okay. Let me share the correct screen. That's always a good one. Okay. And I have to just pop this into presentation mode if you give me just 1 second. Sorry about this. It always goes slowly when I want it to go quickly. Okay. And we will click. Sorry, there we go. And that should come onto our screen in just a moment. I apologize for that. As I said, it always happens when we don't want it to happen. So that's going to eventually pop onto your screen. Hopefully it won't take too long, but I'll get started anyway. So there we go. So today's topic, as you know, is developing a marketing strategy to promote your language courses. Now I have online in brackets there because a lot of what I do is digital marketing. It is also focused. I'm doing a lot of work these days with schools and with tutors that are based entirely online. So that's that there. Now, I know most of you, if not all of you that are with us today, have a pretty good idea already of what a strategy is and have created and implemented them before, maybe some more successfully than others. So I'm not going to spend heaps of time on the basics, although basics are fundamentally important to what we do. So we will sort of just touch on them very briefly. So let's move on to the next slide. Just going to, oh, there we go. So what is a strategy? A strategy can mean many, many things and can take many different forms. But when we strip it right back, what we really see is simply that it's a plan of action designed to achieve a long-term or overall aim. I think the most important thing in this definition, the most important thing for us to remember is that there has to be action. Setting a goal or a target is really great. But if you simply just put it on paper, if you simply just write it down, you're not actually going to get very far. It's the strategy or the actions that actually help you to get there in the end. Okay, so there's a bit of a process that goes into creating a robust strategy. And if you look at your screen now, you'll see that something that I call building blocks. Now, these are the things that you can do to make sure that your strategy is well thought out and well executed. Now, most people think, or many people at least, think that strategies start at the point of a goal. And in some ways it does. However, in order to create good goals and to create these really strong strategies, there are a few really important things that we have to understand first. So I'm going to quickly run you through these building blocks, and then we're going to break them down and to look at them in more detail. So for me, when I start creating a strategy, the first thing I want to know is, how are things right now? So I always start with the self-assessment or self-audit. And that is the part where I make sure I understand what's actually going on, because that's really important to inform what we can do next. The next step is knowing who my target audience is. To be able to create a proper strategy, a tailored, well-pitched strategy, you really do need to know who exactly you're speaking to. So who is your customer? We're going to look at this in a bit more detail shortly. Next up, and I always do this right before I set my goals, is to check out my competition. Now, this isn't a matter of wanting to keep up with my competition. It's simply knowing what my competitors are doing and also what is working for them. Then, of course, comes the all-important goals. And then finally, and this is part of a strategy that sometimes is easy to let slide or to forget, is the analysis. So after we've implemented our strategy or strategies, we make sure that we check out how they're going, we learn what we can from how they performed, and we use that information to inform our strategies and other activities going forward. So let's look at step number one, or building block number one, which, as I mentioned before, is the part where we look at what we're actually doing now, our status quo. Okay, so this can include things like simply asking yourself, what are you actually doing right now? Are you taking deliberate, are you making deliberate actions or taking deliberate actions to market your course? Are you using your website? Are you using social media? Which platforms? How successful is that all going? And again, so what is actually working? It's really important to know what you're doing well, because if you're doing something well, you don't need to necessarily change it. Maybe you expand on it, or maybe you make some tweaks, but if it's going well, you need to know that. What's not working? And do we know why it's not working? Is it because we just haven't had the time to put into it? Is it because the strategy didn't match our audience? Ask yourself why, why what you're doing isn't working. Something that is very important to ask, and this really applies, well, it applies to everyone, but it's extremely important for people who are running a one-person or a very small business. How much time do you actually have for your marketing? Now, we can create big, lofty goals and we can have very elaborate strategies, but unless you actually are honest with yourself and look at how much time you can put into making these, to implementing these strategies or trying to reach that goal, if you don't have the time, you're just setting yourself up for failure. So you need to take a good, honest look at what you can manage, how many hours a week you can put into marketing, or how much budget. You have to look at these things and be really honest with yourself, because it's not about creating all the strategies. It's about creating something that you can commit to and creating something that you can actually implement and, see some results from. Another thing you might want to ask yourself is, have I set some goals? Did I set some goals last year? Were these formal goals? Did I just have some ideas? Did I write them down? Did I make any progress? How, did I achieve these goals? Did I take some steps towards them? What were the barriers to meeting these goals? Look at that. And if you didn't set goals at all, well, then maybe, maybe that's the first thing you need to think about. Another really important thing to do right at the beginning of setting a strategy is looking at baseline metrics. And when I say baseline metrics, I'm talking about things, knowing things like, could be how many people are coming into your website, how many followers you have on different social media platforms, what your engagement rate is. Knowing these sort of pieces of information at the start means that you can compare them at the end. Once you've completed a strategy, or once you've reached a goal, you can actually look and compare how much progress you made, which is really very important if you're looking to sort of keep motivated and to actually, be able to say, hey, I did that. Okay. So once we have, worked out what's going on now, then we're ready for step 2, or building block number 2. And Giuseppe mentioned this before about, being very customer focused, customer centric. And a big part of that is actually knowing who our customer is. And sometimes this can be a little bit tricky. So let's have a quick look at what's on the screen now. So who is your ideal customer? How, basic things. How old are they? Where are they located? Which market are they in? Their education level, income, etc., etc., etc. All of that basic information is really important when we're creating an idea, an avatar, who our customer is. When we get to know our customer, we need to know these bits and pieces. However, there is one big caveat here, and that is your ideal customer your actual customer? So this is where we think about who is actually making the decisions, who is paying, and all those other considerations that we might need to take and might need to think about to work out who our actual customer is. So for example, if your target audience is maybe students and their age between 17 and 22, you might want to ask yourself if who is actually paying, because at the end of the day, the person who is fronting up with the money to pay for your course, they are your absolute customer. So when we are considering, who our actual customer is, we need to, of course, appeal to our ideal customer, our 17 to 22-year-old, for example. We want to have content and we want to appeal to their needs and their wants and their dreams. But at the same time, we have to be able to also satisfy the questions, the information that perhaps their parents or whoever is, has the final say in that purchase decision. We also want to satisfy them in this process too. Another really important thing to know about our target audience, and this is one that's quite easy to forget, is taking into consideration what time zone they're in. So for example, and this is particularly important for social media. Say you create a fantastic piece of content, you've got an amazing caption, you've ticked all the boxes, you're feeling really happy about that piece of content, and then you go and push it out to your target audience at a time when they're sleeping. Now, what that does, if they are not following you, and even if they are following you, what that does is that content is going to get buried under content, under content, under content. And by the time they wake up and scroll through their feeds first thing in the morning when they're lying in bed or having their breakfast or on the bus, when they scroll through that, they're not going to find you, because all of those other pieces of content have piled in on top of what you had to say. So you've wasted that effort, you've wasted that great piece of content. So please always make sure that you're posting at the right time for your target audience, not just the right time for you. I'm at work 9 till 5. That is not what's important. Okay, so the last point that's on that list there is, how does your target audience get their information? Is it online? Is it offline? Perhaps you're targeting a slightly older demographic, in which case maybe you do have to consider some offline marketing strategies. Are they using social media? Do they respond well to email marketing? These are all questions that you need to ask yourself while you get to know who your target audience really is. Okay, so step 3, that was the part where we get to know our competition. And this can include things like, who else is doing what I do? What are their unique selling points? So what are they using to make some noise and to get some traction in the market? Do they serve exactly the same market as I do? Because that's also important. What are they doing? Are they doing Google ads? Are they using social media? Is it paid? Is it organic? There's so many things that they could be doing, and we need to know what those things are. And similarly, we also should know what they do well. Now, a quick note on that is that it's perfectly fine and reasonable to take inspiration from what our competitors are doing. We never flat out copy them, but if you see that they are getting really high engagement on, for example, a video on pronunciation, then it's fine if you want to go ahead and create your own similar videos. Just make sure that they look different, they feel different, they're delivered in a different way, or they tackle different aspects or different words. So inspiration, good, copying, Okay. So goal setting. Now, goal setting is something that we've all heard about hundreds, if not thousands of times. So with that in mind, I'm going to actually ignore the left side. Please feel free to read that and look at that, but I'm going to jump right in there on the right-hand side where it says translate goals into actions. And this is where many of us actually fall short. So we come up with these fantastic SMART goals, but we actually forget how to map out the how. So what actions do we need to take to get us to our goals? And this is really the crux of a strategy. This I'm actually going to go into in a few moments after I've finished with the last step. And we're going to look at how to actually turn goals. We're going to take an example goals and we're going to look at how we can actually translate that into action so you can see what exactly it is that I'm talking about. And then finally, our fifth building block, or our fifth step, was to analyze and evaluate our performance. Now, I'm a big data geek, and I love analyzing how things are going and also how things went. We can learn so much about our audience by knowing how they respond to certain things. And analyzing your performance, or the performance of your strategy, is not just something that you should do at the end. You also need to sort of keep an eye on how things are going during that process. So when you set your goals, you can decide at what points you're going to check in on your performance. So for example, if you have set a strategy or set a goal that has sort of a 1 year span, checking in, say, every 3 months would be quite reasonable. But of course, this does change depending on your goal, on your strategy, and the length of time that you've given yourself to get from A to B. Okay, so looking at the second point, which is on your screen right now, the part that says report results. If you are a one-person business, you might think, well, you know, why should I report on results? It's just for me. Is it really worth my time? However, I would say that spending a little bit of time going through your results and reporting on them, even if it's just reporting to yourself, gives you a better understanding of what's going on, and can also be extremely motivating. Either you see that things could be improved and then you're motivated to work on those things, or you see that things have been going super well, and you know, who doesn't like seeing that? Analyzing results also gives you the opportunity to tweak your strategy and extend or change any goals that you might have as needed. Okay, so I said that I was going to take you through an example of turning a goal into actions. So that was back at step 4, where we talked about translating these goals into actions, and it's probably the most important thing that we can do in the entire strategy creating process, because because without these actions, without these steps, the goal is really nothing. So what I've got there on your screen is a very simple, pared back, easy goal for us to look at, and that is to increase engagement on Instagram by 25% within 6 months. Now, if that was, you know, my real goal, I'd actually slap a proper date in there rather than say 6 months. But for the purposes of today, doesn't matter. So increase engagement on Instagram by 25% within 6 months. So that's the goal. What sort of things can we do to support that goal? So we're looking at things like, for example, creating a posting schedule. So maybe we say, okay, I'm going to post 3 times a week. I'm going to post 5 times a week, whatever works for you. I'm going to tailor content for the target audience. It's very easy to fall into the trap of creating content that we find interesting, or that means something to us. But that's actually not the point. In this case, we're looking at Instagram. It's actually not the point of Instagram. We're not creating content for us. We're creating content for our audience. Again, the audience is the focus. So we need to make sure that what we're creating is what our audience wants to see. We want to, so this goal here is to increase engagement. So we want to provide engagement opportunities. And that could be as easy as saying at the end of the Instagram post, you know, let me know whatever in the comments below, or what do you think about whatever. Or it could be if you're using stories, using stickers, using the polls, the question box, the swipeys. People cannot resist interacting with those engagement prompts. They seem silly to us, but I guarantee you, if you start using them, people will absolutely click on a poll. Answering questions is not quite as popular as some of the others. But they will definitely swipe. They'll definitely do polls. They will, you know, there's a new like button now on stories. People hit that. So give people the opportunity to engage with you. You know, prompt them to do it. Ask them to engage with you. Absolutely appropriate. If someone comments on something that you've posted, so again, we're talking about Instagram, you've made a post, someone's left a comment. You have to reply to every single comment, even if it's just a smiley. And I get a lot, well, how do I respond to a smiley? Well, it's not just clicking the like button. It's actually acknowledging that person, because perhaps they're just feeling a little shy, a little bit uncomfortable, and don't want to like front up with their questions straight away. So if someone leaves you a smiley, you could say, you know, glad you enjoyed my post. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a DM. Or, you know, it's all about opening that door and giving them space and, you know, creating an environment where they feel comfortable to continue that conversation. And then the last point under actions, or the last action that we could take to help increase our engagement on Instagram, is proactively engage, for example. Now, what that means is we might identify some accounts or some people on Instagram who we think are doing a great job, or we think are beneficial to what we are doing, and we follow them. Or you don't even have to follow them, but you follow them, or you make comments on their posts, and you start that conversation from your side. You reach out from your side. Just make sure that you're making good quality posts. If you say something intelligent, or if you ask a question, you're more likely to get some kind of dialogue in return. And then the final thing, which is on your screen right now, and we mentioned it before, was the analysis part. So setting a review period. And I said that we should do that right when we set our goals. And for this particular goal, I would say, you know, a weekly 10-minute quick review of the Instagram insights. That lets me know how things are going. And at the 3-month mark, I do a progress report. And that would be, you know, looking more carefully at what the engagement rate is. Has it increased? If it hasn't, it gives me some space to change things up a little bit. If it is increasing, it allows me to, you know, keep going, perhaps expand on things that are doing well. And then finally, at the end of the period of time that we've decided, in this case it was 6 months, we'd do an analysis, an end report. Okay. So before before we sort of move on to other areas of today's webinar, I wanted to sort of very briefly talk about a couple of really important things that you should be doing to help distinguish yourself or your brand from all the millions of other brands that are out there. And we're just really going to touch on this because this in itself is such a enormous topic. But right now you're going to see a couple of boxes on your screen, and we're going to go through what is in those boxes. So the first one on the left is being professional. So what does this really mean? Being professional doesn't necessarily mean wearing a suit or even having the latest tech, but what it does mean is being organized, having great customer or stakeholder communications, and making sure that you've thought about your customer journey and how you're going to facilitate that. It's about putting your customer in the middle, focus on your customer and how you're going to lead them from your point A to your end goal. And finally, it's also making sure that we're using a platform or a program that is simple, effective, and most importantly, reliable. Because that reliability factor, that is going to have a huge impact on your brand. Over on the right-hand side, you'll see a box that says brand development. And many people believe that brand development is even more important than the being professional part. And, you know, that in some ways that could be true. However, if you don't have that professional structure and backing behind your brand, you're never going to be able to reach your full potential. So both of these things are equally important, and you really do need to address both sides. So brand development is making sure that you have and express your brand values. So these are the things that are really going to resonate with your students and help you to convert your potential students. Another really important aspect of developing your brand is finding your voice and your brand personality. Are you casual and fun? Are you more businessy and formal? There's no right or wrong answer to this. The point is that you really do need to work out who you are as a brand. that said, you can tweak your brand or your brand identity as you go. Who or what I thought my brand was 4 years ago is really completely different to what my brand is today. Now, I wouldn't recommend changing your brand completely all the time, but little tiny tweaks here and there are perfectly fine. Okay, so we've worked out who we are. We've got a professional structure in place. So how do we get our brand out there? Now, there's lots of different ways, but I've just gone and grabbed 3 common ones for us to look at today. Now, the first one, and that is, if you haven't already worked out, social media is one of my absolute favorite things to do. It's also one of my favorite parts of digital marketing. Social media is a fantastic way to communicate your brand because we can do a lot. And for the most part, all it costs us is our time. There's a range of different platforms for different demographics. If you think about it, for example, if your target audience is millennials, and I think for many of us, that's probably the age group that we are looking at. If your target audience is millennials, as many as 70% of all millennials use social media to inform a purchase decision. So they're not Googling brands in the first instance, at least. They're going on Instagram mainly or other social media platforms, and they're checking out brands there. They're checking out how you interact with your audience. They're checking out what other people are saying about your brand. So social media is very important, and it's a great way to communicate your brand values. It's a great way to get your personality out there. It also offers you a range of different techniques and things that you can do. So social media is definitely a vehicle for communicating who you are as a brand that I would, definitely recommend. Another thing that we should do, and we should all do probably better than we, maybe not better, but we need to pay more attention to this, is branding our platform and our communications. So every email that goes out from you or your school, every document should have an underlying consistent brand. Your brand identity should be consistent across everything. It doesn't matter if it's a worksheet or an email signature or a business card or whatever it is. Your brand needs to be consistently portrayed across all formats, including your platform. So if you are using a particular program or platform, you should, as much as possible, integrate your brand, your color palette, your fonts, your identity into that platform. And another area is lesson style. So if we think about identifying who we are as a brand, and we've decided, okay, I am a one-person English tutor, and one of my selling points is that I'm really fun and high energy, and we do, we tackle more casual topics. We want to carry that tone through everything. So you can't start off on social media or you shouldn't start off on social media being casual and fun and then deliver a lesson that is very formal. So what we want to do is make sure that our tone and delivery style is the same across not just all platforms and communications, but also we bring that into how we deliver lessons. And that's also really important if we are a school or we are a company that has a few different teachers. We're not talking about stripping away individual teachers' personalities. We're just talking about making sure that everybody in your team understands the overarching values of your brand and how your brand should be portrayed. So we're just giving them parameters to make sure that everyone on some level is delivering in a cohesive way. And, the underlying number one piece of advice or information that I can give you, and I can't say it loudly enough, obviously it's in bold black letters on your screen there, consistency. So everything else, it doesn't matter if we've created amazing strategies, it doesn't matter if we've created a really strong, customer journey or funnel. If we don't have consistency, it all means nothing, because eventually it's all going to sort of fall by the wayside. So final thoughts for you. Be consistent with your processes. If you say you're going to get back to email inquiries within 2 days, please stick to it. Be consistent with your brand. If you've decided to use a casual tone or a formal tone or whatever that is, stick to it. Be consistent with your content. If you've decided you're going to use social media and post 3 times a week, do that. Okay, stick to it, be consistent. And most importantly, we need to be consistent with the quality of the services we provide, because all of these things at the end of the day are small pieces of one really big puzzle. Standing out online, which is what we all want to do, basically revolves around this idea of consistency. And if we can nail this, you will do very, very well. So that is it from me today. And it's my absolute pleasure to hand you back to Giuseppe.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Corinne.
You're welcome.
I actually enjoy a lot the presentation, and always good to get a refresher in some of these key marketing points. And actually consistency is difficult, but might be even the key to success, like over time, because marketing is not something that you see the results after one day, but you need to be like, consistent over a long period of time. And I have to admit it's difficult also for me as when I approach marketing in Adobe, but is fundamental. And yeah, that's very, very important. I will ask Nicole to jump as well. And so we can actually go and do our quick, I promise will be a quick and practical demo of our solution, and how our solution can actually be integrated with your marketing strategy, and actually can be your more practical arm of your strategy. And actually, are you going to go to market practically and are going to attract customers in your school, to enroll students in your courses, or to sell more synchronous or asynchronous classes. So the case study will be using Adobe AI Platform, and the platform will be used in order to build what we call a marketing funnel. And so if we go to next slide, okay, marketing funnel basically is the description of your customer journey with interaction with you. So we'll be with your school in this case. And so we have different steps. Of course, it's a funnel because of you have a bigger group of customers on the top of your funnel. And then as you move those customers down your funnel, actually becomes smaller and smaller. But what is the objective of a funnel is actually to measure conversion of all the different steps. For example, on the awareness stage, when you do your marketing campaigns on social media. And then, of course, when the students go and your platform and you acquire the email, that will be the acquisition. And then you have actually the activation stage, is when the students actually start engaging with your course, for example, and then start to get some value and understands the value proposition, what you're offering. And then, of course, revenue is when you convert the customer in paying customers. So when they go check out online and insert the credit card, and then retention. So you keep these students over time engaged. So if you go to the next slide, here we have an example of one funnel that you can build using Adobe AI Platform. And we're going to show you like a practical example, but of course, our platform allows you to build different kinds of funnels that can be adapted to your specific marketing strategy. So once you identify your target customer, then you need to build your funnel, and you can actually do tests and iterate different kinds of funnels in order to identify the one that works the best for you and help you to get new customers. So I will ask now Nicole to share the other screen, which will be actually the platform. So we're going to jump on a real demo on a platform. This is Adobe AI Platform, and this is actually a platform that is branded with the Adobe logo. Usually what we do is we work with language institutions and also like individual teachers, and we build customized, all the white labeled and can be consistent with your brand. As Corinne saying, consistency is key. And of course, we want to build an experience that is branded. with your brand element and colors, and is actually consistent with all your communication and marketing strategy. So this can be created and branded according to your school. And this is an example of a course that is created in the platform. And of course, here what we created is a landing page of the course, and you can have actually like the different kind of lessons on curriculum the students can go through. And here, of course, we see also the teacher. And here is really simple to build a funnel, because once you promote your course, the student can arrive here, can try the first lesson, and go directly to the value of the learning. And here we have different kind of exercises that can be created automatically by our AI system. So we really facilitate the content creation part. Maybe Nicole, you can share an example or how those lessons are, what is the user interface of those lessons. For example, here we have a speaking activity, and the student actually can listen, pronunciation, and practice, and get automatic feedback by our AI system. And we can create like a huge variety of different kind of activities and exercises that are really gamified. If you think about like apps like Duolingo or other kind of gamified applications, but are created by your school. So they reflect your pedagogical approach and reflect the value of your school and the way like you communicate your pedagogical system to your customers. So once a student actually like engage with those activities and actually get directly the value of the learning, then he can go and to continue it, of course, to pay. And so you can click on the buy now button, and then the student is prompt to go to the checkout page. And here, of course, we are asking the user to create an account. So in this way, we are acquiring the email of the user, and now becomes actually a deeper step on our funnel. So now we can actually send emails and to convince the students to then go to the next stage, which will be the payment stage. And the payment stage also that is integrated inside the same platform, and a student can easily purchase the course. Okay, a really important thing that I would like to say is that this course is asynchronous. So asynchronous means that you can actually scale really easily, because you don't need to hire teachers in order to be there in the platform and deliver those classes. So you can scale much faster to many, many students. But we believe as well that asynchronous only is not so effective. And there's a reason why we created actually like interesting combination and quite unique, frankly, combination of the synchronous part with the asynchronous part. So basically you can have, for example, in this course, you have unit 1 and unit 2 are basically asynchronous. So there are activities like the one we showed you before. But then we have after the first 2 units, we have a checkpoint. And here actually the students need to book a lesson with the teacher. For example, just click on the book and choose the calendar. And here, actually, the student will be able to have the video call embedded in the system. And the teacher will get data that are coming from... sorry, can you mute yourself? We'll go to the Q&A in a moment. Just to break the flow of the conversation. Thank you. And so like we go from the asynchronous part to the synchronous part. And so we go from general, which is asynchronous, is the course is already created by your school, and is general, to the synchronous part, which will be really specific. So the student can actually learn exactly what he wants to learn about the language, and that are
50%, maybe you will get better.
In a really powerful combination of synchronous and asynchronous. Okay, so of course, we have a lot of other things to show you today, but one thing I would like to say is that you can combine, depending also on the kind of price that you want to give to the market, just a synchronous course, of course, will be the really scalable and really cheap, because of course you don't have any costs. You can actually like scale to millions of users potentially. And on the other side of the spectrum, you have just synchronous, so just imagine video calls with one-on-one video calls with a teacher. What we are doing in Adobe is giving you the possibility to combine, the asynchronous and synchronous in a nice solution. Of course, you can understand which part of this spectrum you can be. So you can be completely like synchronous, it can be like mostly synchronous, so you have a lot of video calls and just a little bit of asynchronous to support. Or you want to be more on the other side, you're like mostly asynchronous, so you have a lot of content and just maybe 1 or 2 lessons per month to support the students in the learning process. This is a decision that you can test with your market, depending on, of course, what is your target market, what is the purchasing power of your target market, what is the current course you're delivering, what kind of content and what kind of problems you're solving for your users. But we give you the possibility really easily to create different kind of courses and then to combine different kind of asynchronous and synchronous in different formats and different prices. Okay, so just to conclude, going back to the slides, I would like to say that it's really difficult to create a funnel with a top-down approach, just sitting in front of a whiteboard and creating a funnel. The best way is always experimentation. So what we always suggest is try to create something really quickly and try to promote and go to the market really quickly and test it with real users and try to get real data. And then iterate the funnels. And that's one of the main principles of Edugo, that we allow you to actually do this kind of like really quick iteration experimentation and try to build the funnel that best work for your target market. Okay, that said, thank you so much for being with us till the end of the webinar. Those are our channels where you can follow us. And if you're wondering if you want to watch the recording of this webinar, will be available in our YouTube channel. So please go to edugo.ai on YouTube, subscribe, activate notification, and you're going to be able to be notified when we're going to upload also this recording of this exact webinar. That said, now I would like to open Q&A. So please, Corinne, you can jump back in, and now we can answer to some questions. I already saw that many people are writing questions in the chat room. Yes. And so we can go and answer some of those questions. And of course, if you want to also jump in the conversation, just raise your hand, and then you can also ask a live question. Maybe, Nicole, you can coordinate a little bit the question part. And, so
I will start with the first question that we received, that is for Corinne, from Patrick, who is asking, which do you think is the most effective social media for marketing? So Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, WhatsApp, or something else?
Okay, well, that's actually a really good question. And the answer isn't black or white, obviously. So it really depends on, number one, who your market is. And that's not even as simple as saying, looking at age anymore, because different platforms appeal in different ways. So if you're looking at English speaking markets, if you were, for example, a teacher that was teaching Spanish, or, and you were looking at English speaking markets, well, Facebook, the idea that Facebook is kind of dead for anyone that's sort of millennial or younger is kind of true. But if we take that out of the English speaking context and look at, other markets in the world, especially, in Asia, Latin America, Facebook, there still is a place for it. So it really comes down to who exactly your market is and what you want to, what you're wanting to push out to them. One thing I would say, Twitter does tend to be a much older demographic. It's also it's a different kind of style of social media that perhaps isn't as easy to market through, because you have such a small amount of space. People don't tend to respond well to sort of a very hard sell via Twitter. So, I mean, that's the one that I would be cautious with. It's more the sort of platform that you might want to use if you are, for example, an academic member of staff and you have opinions or comments on a specific area of interest or expertise. If you're an English professor, for example, that could work for you. But again, in general on Twitter, the demographic is much older. So generally speaking, I would say Instagram is a good one if you're targeting millennials, even a little bit younger, a little bit older. Facebook, there's still a place for it, especially in non-English speaking markets. There are also other platforms like VKontakte in Russia. We've got Weibo in China, but again, those are platforms that if you are not from that market or you don't have somebody on staff who even, you know, speaks the language and knows how to operate those things. They're not things that you can just mess around with. You need to have some understanding of the language and culture that goes with them. So yeah, LinkedIn also a good one. Surprisingly, the age demographic for LinkedIn is much younger than what we all sort of expected. We expect them to be sort of like the CEO level, the older, you know, gentleman is kind of like what people think of LinkedIn, but the most recent data shows that most of the most active users of LinkedIn are in that sort of 18 to 34 bracket. So there is also a good argument to push out content via LinkedIn as well.
Okay, perfect. So thank you so much for this question. I think for this answer, I think it's very interesting and it's something that everybody is trying to understand, find the right channel. Then there is another question from Luma that is asking how to approach key people at schools in other countries. Most schools only share the info@ email. Okay,
so I have a couple of techniques for sort of getting around this. So the first one, if you really do have to email the info@ email address, just make sure that you are writing a proper personalized email, because the minute you start sending something that looks like a spammy email that, an email that you've sent to like a lot of different people, there's no personalization, anything like that. There's no demonstration that you've actually looked into and are interested in that specific school. You're not going to get anywhere. So make sure that that's something that you're doing, is creating proper emails if you have to email the info@. The other thing you can do is just try to contact those people in other ways. So go onto LinkedIn. I can guarantee you that the marketing director or the principal or whoever it is, the most important people of that school will definitely be on LinkedIn. Try to connect with them there. You can send them messages, you can send a connect. Again, you know, be deliberate, be careful, show that, you know, demonstrate your interest. You want to be somebody that is attractive for them to, you know, spend their time on. You don't want to just be someone like, oh, I want to, you know, I want to represent your school. You know, say something that means something. Otherwise, sort of a last resort is you can go on to, for example, their Instagram or Facebook and make a comment and say underneath a post, hi, I'm trying to get in touch with your marketing person or your salesperson. Could you please DM me who I should contact, and do it that way. Sometimes if you send a DM straight away, it goes into their general or other inbox and they don't actually see it. So doing that as a comment, you know, usually will get some kind of response.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And then the next question, I think, is for Giuseppe, because it's like, do you have AI-powered essay grader or any suggestion how to go about getting the machine check essays?
Yeah, okay, thank you so much for the question. So now we are going more on the AI pedagogical part of our system. And we've been doing other webinars that we are really focused on the, you know, artificial intelligence or natural language processing part of our system. So you can go also in our YouTube channel and check out those other webinars. I will answer quickly to this question by saying that our system is actually like working using natural language processing to analyze the content that the student production, right? Like, so we have systems that are able to understand some parts of the, you know, when the student is doing some mistakes. For example, is a part of our system. Right now, we don't have a specific essay checker, even though like it's something that we support in our platform, is the part that the students can write an essay and then the teacher is giving feedback. And that actually is the interesting part of our platform, is the fact that by collecting the data about all the trainers that are performing those like corrections, we are able to tag those data and then being able to build a more sophisticated AI system. So it's going to be something that is going to evolve over time. So it's not available yet, but it's something evolving over time. Of course, you can have like simple systems that are checking like spelling mistakes or grammar mistakes, but we are trying to build something that is more sophisticated and really specific for language learning. If you want, I can demo to you some part of these systems. Uh,
I'll get in touch with you later because I'm actually looking out for an AI powered essay grader because I'm a teacher, and the software that I use, I mean, Grammarly doesn't serve the purpose. It's actually, I want the machine to grade the essay, which will save our time. That's the objective, that how we as teachers can use AI to save our time, because every week we keep checking hundreds of essays manually. So if AI could do that, it would be really nice. Thank you for your response.
Dhanani, it's my pleasure, and actually that's exactly what is our mission at Go, is to extend and scale the power of teachers, and so automate those repetitive tasks and really make the teacher actually focus the attention on the human interaction. So that's something we really would love to do, and then we're collecting data at the moment. Which language are your students?
English. I teach in Dubai. I'm from Middle East,
Oh.
and I've been working over here with in a technical school where I teach them English as a foreign language, and writing is one of the important skills. And I teach them academic writing, and almost 100 essays I check every week, just to give you a tentative number. And if the machine could do that for me, wow, that would be wonderful.
Actually, we should definitely get in touch because I'm moving to Dubai. And so, yeah.
Maybe I can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Let's connect and let's have a deeper discussion later.
Okay, fine.
So much, actually,
I'll send my email to Nicole now.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. So there is another question coming from Olga, who's asking, should we split test the marketing strategies if our audience is both parents and children? And then how to keep consistency and tone if you speak to different generations at the same time?
This is a really good question. And I will try and be as concise as possible. And there's probably a few answers to this which are all, equally as valid. But if this was me, so what I'm talking about when I say that we have to, identify who our actual customer is. If we were, and I'm going to use Instagram as an example again, because it's a really simple one for us to sort of look at. If you were using Instagram, for example, and you're making content, now the way people of different generations use Instagram is completely different. So if your target audience are, later teenagers, and they're not going to be reading great big captions. So what you're wanting to do is make sure that your graphic is really appealing to that particular audience, because they're the ones that will look at the graphic. They might read what is above the cut, the truncated version. So like the first sentence and a half. They might read that. That's the part that's going to get them excited. They're going to follow your stories, that kind of thing. Then if they're going to go and say, Mom and Dad, I want to go and see, or whoever, I want to go to this school, and they might show them the Instagram on their phone. It's the parent that's going to sit there and read the caption. So that's where you can actually get some of that meaty information that that parents are looking for. The other thing we find is that if the kids are looking at social media, the first thing the parent says to them when they go and ask their parents about it, or whoever, is, oh, do they have a website? So that's where your website comes in. That's where your website should be really loaded with all this information that the parent or whoever is making that decision to pay for your course, that is where you should be having all that information, because often that's what they want to see. They're not interested in looking through somebody's Instagram feed. They want to say, oh, give me the website, send me the website, and they'll go across to your website and have a look there. I'm not against split testing. I think there is a place for split testing, but again, I would look more on, where different audiences, what different tools and where different audiences are getting their information before I started making that effort to split test things. Because the reality is we're all busy people. Split testing does take more time than just doing a single post. Yeah. And the second part of that was how to keep consistency and tone if you speak to different generations at the same time. Well, if you, for example, are an English language teacher and you're appealing to a non-English language audience, just for example, the rule of thumb is that your language level should be pitched at around a 15 or 16-year-old high school, an educated 15, 16-year-old level. So we're not talking, you shouldn't be using very highly sophisticated English anyway. So I mean, the tone can be kept relatively similar. I mean, it's a hard one. I don't think that any of us would, and maybe one or two do, but I don't think many of us would get to the level where we're using such casual dialogue that it would be offensive to a parent. So it's more about just keeping the same sort of imagery, the same sort of color palette, fonts, this kind of thing, and making sure that the information is accessible in different places. I know I sort of talked around in a circle a little bit there, but that's such a big question.
Okay, thank you. Also, is asking, do you think TikTok will keep rolling in year 2022?
Yeah, I do. Do I think that we all need to jump in on TikTok? Not necessarily. Again, it depends on where your target audience is and how comfortable you feel, because there's nothing worse on TikTok than being completely uncomfortable and making a horrible video that goes viral for all the wrong reasons. So if you have a member of staff, or if you feel really comfortable making TikToks, then do them. Otherwise, I would focus my time somewhere else.
Okay, that's great. So thank you so much. I see that there are no other questions, and since it's already 1 hour that we are doing this session, I think it's time to close it. I would like to thank a lot both Corinne and Giuseppe for sharing your expertise, but also all of you for staying with us till now and for this amazing session. Do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can have the recording. Also, for any question you might have, you can also go on our website, edugo.ai, and there is a chat box, so you can type there anything you'd like to ask for further information. And also for the teacher, we also have a fresh program that is called Brand Ambassador Program. So if you'd like to know more about it, use the same chat box in the website, and we will come back to you. So many thanks to all of you, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.